So joining me on the couch now is Rick Bracken, who is VP of Cloud Analytics for Oracle. Rick, thanks very much for being here. Tell me why analytics is such an interesting area for utilities.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that there's a tremendous investment going on in metering, smart meters, and a lot of focus on the technology and the devices and the cost of those assets. But really, they're single purpose. What they do is they generate information. And there's the information side of it has been somewhat of an afterthought in the industry, and people are trying to get creative how they use information, both to do new things and to just improve the way the utilities have always generated and maintained delivered energy. So the fact that now they're struggling because they put these devices out, these devices are creating terabytes of data, orders of magnitude more than they've ever dealt with before. People are really anxious to find out how you create value with that. So,
and what is the value in that data? What's inside that data?
The value of the data is maybe not as it's not as new and different as people may think. There's a lot of people projecting that the customers are going to engage, things are going to change the way they view energy providers. Personally, the customer really isn't going to be that engaged, in my view. They look at the energy company as a place to plug in, and most of them prefer to keep it that way. They don't want to think too much about it.
So if the data's not interesting to the customer, I assume it's interesting to the utility itself, and in what ways is it interesting to the utility?
So the utility traditionally has had to operate a very complex real-time network with very little information. And as a result of that, they tend to focus the information gathered historically on generating plants, substations, very engineering approach to taking single points of data on big pieces of the equipment. But when it comes down to the feeder and the customer and the individual, there's not a lot of information they know. So they're doing a lot of guessing, conservative guessing, in terms of how you size transformers, how you distribute electricity, basically how you size your equipment, how you operate your equipment. You're deriving a lot of things through models, but now they have the opportunity to actually measure and utilize that data directly. So they can go from a place of having to be very conservative with a lot of uncertainty to operate very precisely. That translates in a number of benefits. One is it's lower cost, which translates into lower rates, which is a benefit to the customer. It translates in a much more precise and faster identification of problems, like outages or equipment that might fail. It also translates into some simple things like, is your bill accurate, and how quickly will the utility identify errors in billing, things that they may have traditionally taken them a couple months to figure out. They can identify almost immediately now.
And is part of this lower cost the fact that you have to have less redundancy in the system because you know more precisely how much energy is being used? You
can design and build much tighter to tolerances. You can identify problem areas more precisely. You can pinpoint, you can deal with anomalies such as certain customers, very simple things. Like instead of thinking there's a new technology to deploy, you could have customers that have a heat pump that's been broken for 3 years and they're paying 50% more energy than they needed to. And there's actually a surprising number of those occurrences that happen where people just passively are doing things that are costing them a lot of money that now you can precisely go in and change, which then benefits the system because you don't have to build so much to serve them. It benefits all the customers around them. Things like energy theft. So people are stealing energy. The surprising thing is people think that people stealing energy hurts the utility. The reality is it really doesn't. What hurts is all the other ratepayers who essentially have to make up for that cost. The utility is pretty much revenue neutral in that regard. So these are all customer benefits, even though they might appear to be things that are benefiting the utility.
So the analytics, being able to analyze that data might help in terms of the theft of data?
Theft of data is a big application. Surprising, when we started DataRaker prior to acquisition of Oracle, our theory was that the advanced applications, precise sizing of devices, operating things a lot more to tighter tolerances, helping customers energy efficient, that was going to be the big benefit areas. What we found is that the reality is that a lot of the opportunities are a lot easier than that, lower hanging fruit. There's a lot of opportunity to improve the way they identify theft. We have a customer in the US, early days when we started just taking a look at some basic algorithms on their data, found they had, at a given time, anywhere in the order of 3,000 to 6,000 people stealing energy. And they had no idea that was going on. In fact, I was given a 15-minute introduction to a CFO who was sort of semi-interested, and by the time I came to his office an hour and a half later, the next day I got a phone call to come and meet the CEO and the entire senior exec team to let them know there's this theft problem going on, which is something they had no idea was happening. And so that's an example of some of the kind of low-hanging fruit you can find just by really engaging the data at a level and a scale that they've never been able to do before.